Hey there, this is the Resistor Vic podcast. I'm here to get folks thinking about politics as something that's really about regular people like you and me, and to realize that together we can make a difference. I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. We're here with the Resistor Vic podcast tonight. I've got Brandon Wade for Congress in Oklahoma Congressional District 2. He's a third-generation union worker. He's in a R+28 district, which traditionally, over the decades, has been mostly Democratic until about 10 or 12 years ago when Tom Coburn won. And I'm going to let Wade tell more about it. Wade, welcome to the Resistor Vic podcast.
Good to be with you, and thank you for having me on. Yeah, like you said, I'm a union guy of third generation. I'm running in Oklahoma, which is one of the reddest states in the nation. So I'm fighting an uphill battle in this district. It's fairly red, but it's a rural district. And what we're seeing with the bill that got passed, I think it's turning and opening some minds, even of what I call the traditional Republicans that are out there still that are fed up with the extreme side.
And by bill, you're talking about the so-called big, beautiful budget bill.
Yeah, the big, beautiful bill that they love to talk about and tout all over the place. Matter of fact, our representative who I'll be running against in 26 just got done doing a series of town hall meetings throughout our district where all he was doing was coming around. It wasn't really town hall. He just came around trying to sell that big, beautiful bill and spread their lies. I call it smoke and mirrors because that's basically what they were doing. He put out numbers and facts and charts and filled the whole hour slot for every stop he had, pretty much, where he couldn't even get through the whole presentation he had. He did take questions.
So he didn't go to hear from his constituents. He went to talk at his constituents.
Exactly right. He just went to tell them what they should be believing and what they had to say with the ones that did get to talk and ask them questions. He never had direct answers to the questions, danced around them. He even went as far as in Bartlesville with one of our rural rancher constituents was asking questions about healthcare and his rural community hospital there possibly going away with the cuts that were made and what he was going to do if he got seriously hurt on the ranch, about getting care. And he gave facts from a government website that he had, and Jasper Keene just told him that he was spreading lies, that wasn't true. You need to come. That's the problem with all of us. He said, we're not getting knowledgeable on the truth. We're out here spreading lies. And he went as far as trying to say that the Democratic Party, the Oklahoma State Democratic Party, was rallying all the party members to come out and cause chaos at his meetings so he couldn't have town halls.
That's what gets me about a lot of these Republicans is they can't even they can't acknowledge that their own constituents in their party don't see them as infallible, that they think that anybody who speaks out without absolute loyalty must be a Democratic operative. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've seen that. I mean, there was Republicans that asked him questions there. I know the Republicans because they called me during the last cycle to their office. One was a CPA asking questions on the tariffs and stuff, and he had called me to his office to have a conversation with me to see if he would rather vote for me instead of Rasheen. He knew he didn't like Trump and he knew he didn't really like Rasheen. And at the end of our meeting, he told me he was going to vote for me. We had a few things we couldn't agree with, but that's how it works. I mean, to have a conversation, you got to be open and be able to listen to somebody as well. And that's what you got to do as a representative. And that's not what he's doing. He's not willing to listen. He just wants to tell you how it's supposed to be and what it's going to be.
I always say that if you and a politician agree on 100% of the things that you talk about, one of you is lying. So tell me
what you're lying, or both of you possibly.
Yeah. Tell me how that town hall would have been different if Brandon Wade was the guy standing up there.
Well, like I said, I wouldn't have spent the whole time that I had allotted for the town hall. I mean, if I was going over what I just passed, the budget deal, like that bill, the big, beautiful bill, I would have come up and explained it a little bit and then left plenty of time for questions and answers and actually given answers to, the questions that were being asked. We had lots of questions that ranged all over. Everything, a lot of them was over the hospital closures and the Medicaid cuts and what we were going to do in those aspects. Others were over, solar farms and things like that, the energy sectors, and then the tax codes and the cuts for the rich, and his explanation was, well, not really. They're paying more of a larger percentage of the income tax. Well, I mean, you can say that because they're making more money and they're paying it, but it excuses us for not feeling sorry for as wealthy as they are and as well as they're doing, them not doing more to take care of our economy and take care of the people that help build their future and their fortunes that they have. And that's where the union side of me comes out, and that is I actually did it last night. I was in Muskogee and I had a meeting there with a group of people, and I told them I was going to give them an opportunity to have a town hall they didn't have with Jasper Keene, and we had a wide range of questions. But I told them a little bit about myself, what I thought, a bill that I got put in that I'm writing now that I got ready to go after I get elected to start pushing it and try to get done that I call the American Dreams Act. We haven't got it on the website yet. We're looking to put it out there so people can start reading it and look through it. But it's going to address what I consider to be four big issues that'll help with a lot of things throughout our country, not just Oklahoma. And it's our affordable access to healthcare, the homeless situations we have, securing our Social Security, and then also a jobs program that helps provide work programs and training that build our middle class from the ground up with jobs programs. So, those four things, it's a large bill, $1.17 trillion, but I looked at ways of covering it because I believe when we write bills, we got to be able to pay for them. And you can't pass the burden on to the working class anymore. So it's cutting down on wasteful spending in the government, our military budget, cutting about $100 billion off of that, and then actually holding them accountable for what they're spending, earmarking our money and make sure that they actually spend it on what it's supposed to be going to. But then a lot of the other cuts are going over, cracking back on tax loopholes, basically. But it's a lot to talk about. I mean, I could sit here and do it all night, but I don't think I want to take up all your time for that. But I want to get it on the website so people can look at it.
Well, speaking of websites, this is Brandon's website, and you see I've got the address scrolling across the bottom of the screen there. And if you look up there right next to my logo, you see a little donate button. So don't hesitate, folks. I've been seeing progressive candidates across the country doing interviews and stuff, talking about how they're struggling to get financial support. The Wall Street Democrats aren't having any problem getting support, but the ones, people are out in social media, whether it be making videos or commenting on videos, and everybody's saying we need a change. We need to start electing people who care about the grassroots. If you really are one of those people, if you really do care, then when you find a candidate like Brandon Wade, who is talking about Main Street America issues and talking about supporting working class, go to their website, drop a couple of bucks.
And that's where we got to do things like that. It helps us grow because, like I told him last night, Jasper Keene's not going to have money or not have problems with getting money. He's got billionaires in Pennsylvania and outside of our state that are contributing to it, and APAC and those places, to where the only large amounts of money I'm taking or going to take is going to come from the unions that support me. And when I say large, it's not. I think 1,500 was the largest one I had last time from our international operating engineers union. And I don't have a problem taking money from operating engineers and stuff like that because they're the working class people and they fight for things that we need. But corporations and stuff, I just can't get behind them because I'm not going to be bought and paid for, because that's the problem we're at right now. The corporate world has a stranglehold on our government.
What'd you say your opponent's name was again? Josh? He got $29,500 from APAC. I just looked that up while you were talking. So, it's one of the hot issues that a lot of people want to know. What are your thoughts about Israel and Gaza and what America is or isn't doing? How do you feel about all that?
It's a touchy subject in Oklahoma, and I learned last cycle when this was all getting started. I went over to Miami, Oklahoma. It's called Miami, Oklahoma, here in Oklahoma, and we were talking, and that was a specific question, just getting going, and a guy asked me where I stood with Israel, and I said, well, I don't have a problem with Israel as a whole. I said, but my problem with what's going on and the way they're treating the people over there, I have a big problem with that. I just don't agree with that. And he asked some more questions. I said, what they're doing is war crimes. At the time, that's why I called it a war crime. And he got up and said, well, then you ain't got my vote, and walked out. Said anybody's against Israel has no vote for me. But I totally disagree with it. And I disagree with us sending money or weapons or any aid at all to Israel to do these kind of things, killing innocent women and children and starvation, basically a genocide. That's what they're doing. And to completely or to blindly follow somebody and fund them makes the United States just as guilty in my eyes. We're a partnership in that, and there's better ways of handling what they're trying to do or what they're saying, what they're trying to do.
I think Netanyahu's just trying to stay out of prison.
Exactly. That's exactly what he's trying to do. It's the playbook he's using. Of course, Putin don't have to worry about his problems over there with their fixed elections, that they have elections, but they're really not. He don't have to lose by power, but Trump's probably going to play the same. I'm afraid he's going to try to play the same playbook and do things towards the end of this election cycle for him and try to maintain office if he's still around. It's a scary time, and I just don't believe we should be funding countries or governments that are doing those kind of things. If we consider them, if the United Nations consider that war crimes and punish these people, then we should be standing up and being an example, not following suit with them.
Has your opponent been a blank check, a spineless? I mean, Congress, never in my lifetime, I think I'm a little bit older than you, never in my lifetime have I seen a Congress that is so willing to go along with absolutely anything a president says. When Clinton was in office, when Obama was in office, yeah, they got some stuff done, but they got pushback from their own party. George W. Bush even got a little bit of pushback. I've never seen one like this, so I'm wondering if your opponent has shown any spine, and what would be the difference with Brandon Wade?
He absolutely has no spine. He's a yes man for Trump. I mean, he's part of that Freedom Caucus group, and he blindly supports everything the guy asks for. It would totally be different. Brandon Wade. I stand with the people of this country, and I stand behind our Constitution, and I believe we should have three separate branches of government, and that we need to uphold that Constitution, take an oath to it. We should be doing that. And we need to hold him accountable for the things he's doing. I had that conversation last night, and I think the biggest reason that we have what we're saying, these spineless politicians in office, is they're bought and paid for, or they're being blackmailed either by Trump, or they're bought and paid for by the corporations to do the things that are being done. And that's another issue. We need to remove that Citizens United and get this money stuff out of our politics and elections.
Absolutely. You mentioned a minute ago that you're in the union. Your website says you're third generation, as I said in the intro, operating engineers. My dad was an operating engineer for a while.
Yeah.
So how do you think that? Go ahead.
I just say, I've been a member for 26 years, since 99. So August 30th of 99, when I first started down there at the plant, and I've been there ever since.
And you've held leadership positions in that union?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the committee chairman for our local here, and then I'm also the vice president on our executive board. So I've learned a lot through my years of doing that, and they've really taught me how to be a representative, the true meaning of a representative. That's what I keep telling everybody everywhere I go, is that's what I'm bringing to the table. Somebody that actually knows how to be a representative, who knows how to stand up and fight for the people and give us that seat at the table that we need. I mean, because right now we have no seat at the table, and we've got to demand that. It is time for a change, and it's going to take all of us standing up to do it.
You know, I ran for Congress in a district very much like yours. I mean, it's 4.5 hours from one point a year, from the lower southwestern-most city to the northeastern-most city, and it's pretty much the same with my district when I ran. And one of the things that I really struggled with, you know, at the time I had a concealed carry permit. I am a gun owner, and I would go around, and especially in one county, it didn't matter what I said. I showed them my concealed carry permit, and they still would not accept that I wouldn't take their guns away from them. It's like, come on, guys. And I'm only bringing it up because your website says that you support all of the Constitution. And that's one of your issues, is to make sure that our whole Constitution stays grounded and whole. And I wish I could get these guys to understand that what you're seeing with Trump trying to take over D.C. and says he's going to take over Chicago, with Trump trying to ignore the courts, there are so many things that he's doing and that this Congress is letting him do, that it's all just a prelude. If the First Amendment goes away, and if your Fifth Amendment right to due process goes away, well, without a free press, without the right to speak out, and without the right to have a fair trial, guess what is useless? The Second Amendment, because they will come get that and nobody's going to know. You're not going to be able to complain to anybody about it. You're not going to be able to take them to court because the courts have been nullified. And I wish I could get people to understand, the Second Amendment folks. I wish I could get them to understand that their Second Amendment is far more in danger now under this regime than it would be under any Democrat.
Yeah, that's the problem with when you allow him to start stomping all over and removing parts of the Constitution. If they allow him to do that, there's no stopping to it. I mean, it just tramples over each other right that's in there. And it's just getting the understanding of the Second Amendment. You know, none of us argue that you don't have the right. You have the right to own firearms, you know, but there needs to be some kind of common sense ground to it. I grew up in a small rural community where we had kids come to school with guns in their gun rack, and never once did I fear somebody was going to use one and shoot them. It was just a different time and age, and I think we need to get back to that upbringing and those thinking. And but part of that raising on the economy and both people, parents having to work, nobody at home, nobody actually teaching firearm safety and how to handle a firearm and how to respect them. I mean, that's the common sense stuff that I think is just totally gone because we don't have them there, and we don't have the setup where we have two parents at home with the kids to help manage those things. And then look at what we can do. I mean, do we need a little bit tougher laws?
One of these days soon, I think, I'm going to do an episode just about the Second Amendment, because if somebody gave me a magic pen and said, write out a solution, my first solution would be a living wage and affordable health care and an economy where one parent could work and one could stay home if they chose. An economy where we had our schools fully staffed with enough teachers to have manageable classrooms. Because I think if we did all of that stuff, we would do so much more to address violence and crime in general in this country than any of the gun laws that people talk about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's the part that I've talked about with lots of people is having solutions to problems, and not just solutions to right now, here and there, but solutions that will have long-term effects that are going to branch out, stretch out, and help take care of a lot of other issues out there. And what you're mentioning or a lot of the things that could fix a lot of other problems we have just by addressing those situations.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I got in here, because part of the point of my podcast and all of my social media stuff, one of the points is I want people to understand that politics, campaigns, people who run for office, by and large, are regular people. It's not all Marjorie Taylor Greens. It's not all Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumers and John Hickenlooper, millionaires and billionaires running for office. It's not all campaigns like they show us in the TV shows where you've got guys running around in fancy suits. Do you have any millionaires or rich people coming and volunteering on your campaign?
Absolutely not. I mean, it'd be nice to have that kind of money to have a campaign you can run and do everything you need with. But no, I got very limited volunteers on my staff doing things, and a lot of the events I go to is myself. A lot of times going. My wife can't make the trips, so a lot of them with us, and so it's a lot of times me going by myself, unless a few of my volunteers can saddle up and go. But they got jobs too. I mean, because like I said, they're volunteering their time, trying to help out and do things. And as we grow, and if we can get funding to help, the union side of me wants to be able to have paid people working for me as well. But these grassroots campaigns, it's hard to do that because we just, it's tough out there. Tough, it's economy stuff, and it's hard to get money and donations from people. And when you do, I greatly appreciate everything I get from, if it's $1, $2, $3, that means just as much as the large donations. I mean, it doesn't go as far, but it's what the person had to give that they could give. And that means so much to just have the support and the spread of word. I mean, grassroots campaigns, people talking about candidates, research your candidates, look at them. And if there's something you believe in and stand for, go out and tell all your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, get them on board. That's how we're going to overturn this thing and how we're going to make the changes that we need. We need to return our government back to people like when it started off, people.
And we can't do that if the people themselves don't participate.
That's exactly right. And if they don't, it's an uphill battle that's hard to fight on your own.
Yeah. So as long as we're talking about regular folks, tell us about your family.
All right. Well, I've got a wife, one son that we got together. She had two daughters when we got married, so I got two stepdaughters. They're all grown up and kind of out of the house. The two daughters are both out of the house. One lives in Tulsa, the other one's out on the East Coast in Virginia. My son is a sophomore at Oklahoma State University. You see the OU stuff behind me, so it's kind of a house divided. But like I told him when he went there, he was kind of afraid to tell me he was going to go to OSU, and I told him when he told me, I don't care where you go to school at, son. If you got friends that are going to help you stick around and make you stay at it, I'd much rather you go somewhere you got friends and people around you for the support you need. The loyalty to the schools is in the football side or the sports side. I'll send OSU money for their support.
There you
Get
go.
you an education. But yeah, that's my family. And like I said, my mom and dad still live in the town I grew up in, a little small Copan, Oklahoma, right on the Kansas-Oklahoma border. Rural small town. I grew up just a rural student up there, playing football, living the American dream, I guess, enjoying high school and hauling hay in the summer and doing those things to get by the school years. And then I got out of school, went to college for a little bit, didn't have a clue really what I wanted to do, and figured instead of racking up debt, I'd just go back to work. And then I ended up getting married and had to have a real job with benefits and those kind of things. So never got back to
Funny
school.
how that changes stuff.
Yeah. But that's who I am, just what I consider a normal working class guy in Oklahoma.
So your district that you're running in and where you live is the further easternmost portion of Oklahoma from top to bottom. You got a lot of farms in there?
Yeah, there's a lot of rural farms, ranchers, kind of like my community I grew up in. A lot of those kind of communities mixed with a little bit of urban and a few bigger cities, but mostly small towns and rural communities with farmers and ranchers, cattle ranchers, and a lot of hay. Then, of course, your soybeans and stuff like that.
Have your ranchers and that been talking much about how not the ranchers, but the farmers more? Have they been talking about how the tariffs are hitting them?
I've not got a lot of conversation with the tariffs on the farmers of that. The cattle industry side, they're loving the cattle prices where they're at, but the downside of that is what it costs their friends and family, people going out that are in their communities having to go out and buy beef. I mean, so yeah, the tariffs I think we're going to see more of the tariffs hit harder here later in the year as they start really taking a set. But the cost of everything is affecting them as far as feeds and grains and their fuel, different things. It's definitely causing them more expensive. And that's why they're happy with the beef prices, because it's helping offset that, but it's still not enough to do what they need.
Did I ask you about the reservations, the tribal lands?
We haven't talked about that. But yeah, we got several tribal nations throughout Oklahoma. There's quite a few. Cherokee nations, I would probably say, is the largest. Choctaw Nation is pretty good size down at the southern part of the state, and in between you got the Creek Nation. But between the Cherokees and Choctaws, there's quite a few of them. It's like everything else in Oklahoma. We have poor voter turnout, and we do with the tribes as well. I hope we can get them more on board, and I think it's more seeing candidates that they can trust. I mean, there's a large mistrust, I believe, with our tribal citizens and the government, and rightfully so, with all the years and things that have been done.
Yeah.
So it's just rebuilding that trust, and we got a long way to go to get that built. But I grew up around. I'm not Native American that I can prove in any way, shape, or form. But I grew up around the culture, and I got friends that are in several of the different tribes that I run around with all the time. Spent times at the house with them, and so I understand the culture and I understand their sovereignty issues, and we need to uphold those. And I feel like I could be one of the biggest allies to the tribe and fighting to actually get them the actual true tribal sovereignty where they have representation in our government, because I believe that's something that they really should have. They're a tribal sovereign nation, just like our state. They should have a representative that has a voting voice in our government, not just somebody gets to sit there as a proxy and listen and input stuff. They should have a vote.
Well, I hope they get to hear you say that, and I hope it'll motivate some of them to vote, because I'm thinking there must be enough of them to make a difference in an election.
Yeah, I mean, with our turnout in Oklahoma, that's what I keep telling everybody. We show up and vote. We could make a difference. We can make we could probably turn a couple seats in Oklahoma if we just vote. With the way traditional Republicans are unhappy with the way their party's been took over, they're looking for somebody to vote for as well, because they're not agreeing with Jasper Keene and a large portion of the traditional Republicans, and some of the other Kevin Hearn and CD1 and some of the other ones there, Stephanie Bice in 5. I mean, there are districts that could be flipped in this deal. We just got to run candidates that can reach the voters and excite them to come out and vote. And I think the biggest part is restoring the trust. I had this conversation with people within the party that out knocking and talking doors and listening to the people out there. There's a lot of mistrust, and they feel like the Democratic Party lost touch with what their base is, and I agree with that they have listened too much to the corporates and the money grab problem within the Democratic Party as well, and not enough to the issues that the people have and the real issues. And that's anytime somebody stands up and starts to have a voice and starts gaining momentum, they get down or silenced. And we need more, and we need the voters to understand there are people out there that are registered Democrat that want to work for them, and they're not going to. I'm a candidate that's going to do that. I'm not bought and paid for by nobody. I'm not going to be told what to do, even within the Democratic Party. I'm listening to my constituents. They're the ones that tell me what to do, and they're the only ones I got to answer to. So the party stuff has been a big problem, and I think it's time that we take that party back and get a hold of it.
Or speaking of taking the party back, I'm going to throw in here that based on what I've read on your website, based on things in our pre-recording conversation, and based on the things you're saying here, I think that you're exactly the kind of candidate that the establishment candidates don't want to support. And if people want to change the Democratic Party, then you're precisely the kind of candidate that we need to throw grassroots support behind, which is why his website has been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. For those of you who are just listening, it's Brandon4Congress.com. So, and I'm going to put his website on the screen again. Go up there and hit that little donate button when you go to his website. If you want to see change, you can't just say you want it. You have to do something proactively to affect change. And supporting people like Brandon Wade for Congress is one of the ways to do that. So we were talking a little bit about the issues that you're most concerned about before we started recording. And one of those was healthcare and rural hospitals. So how is this big, beautiful bill affecting? We didn't talk about this already, did we?
No, we didn't. We did previously a little bit. It's the cuts to Medicaid that are going to take a big toll on our rural hospitals for sure. But that's the short side of it. We got in Oklahoma, there's 165 hospitals throughout our state. 90 of those are rural hospitals. And out of those 90 rural hospitals, we have 47 that are at risk of closure, 23 that are at immediate risk of closing, one of which have already closed in our own district in Stillwell, Oklahoma. And the cuts that they made to those, I asked that question. I got to talk about Josh Keene a little bit after his town hall, and he had no answer for it. They said they set $50 billion aside extra to help cover these costs to Medicaid. And that's for all the United States, by the way. So every state then has to file to try to get the money, fight over who's going to get it. But it's not $50 billion every year. It's $50 billion over the course of the year. That's $10 billion a year. These rural hospitals, on average, depending on bed sizes and stuff, but on average are around $40 million a year annually to operate. Oklahoma alone, the math on that, out of the 90 we have, that's $3.6 billion to operate. So now with that math, you go looking at that $10 billion a year and everybody fighting throughout the United States to get it. A lot of people are going to not have health care or not have a place to go close to them. And people are going to die because of this. And the strain that it's going to put on later down the road, the strain on the other hospitals that are open in the bigger cities and other states, it's going to cause bed space and problems like that, where you may not even be able to get a bed in a hospital because it's overflowed or filled because of the other hospitals shutting down that we had. It's the big picture and the long-term effect is what really bothers me and a lot of people in Oklahoma, and I'm sure throughout the United States. That's a giant concern, and we need to do something to address that. And Josh Keene has no answers for it. I mean, we've put $50 billion aside for it. That's not going to help. That's a drop in the bucket when you go taking all 50 states into consideration for that. And we shouldn't be gambling with our constituents' health and well-being. I didn't even mention the labor delivery side of that. We only have 43 labor and delivery hospitals that handle that in Oklahoma out of those 165. So you go throwing that in there on the mix. If the rural hospital sides that handle it that do, and then now it's just an overflow. It's a big issue that we need to really take serious, and I want to make sure we take care of those issues.
We almost lost my granddaughter and my daughter-in-law because I'm in a very small town and our hospital doesn't have labor and delivery. And when she went into labor unexpectedly and the bleeding and all that stuff, they didn't have time to say, let's get her to Pueblo to deliver. They had to deliver here without the properly trained people in terms of whatever you call the baby doctors. I'm a guy, I don't know. But, yeah, we almost lost her and the baby, and that was scary. And that kind of thing under the big beautiful bill is just going to propagate across rural towns all across this country, and not everybody's going to be as lucky as we were.
Exactly. And Oklahoma, we've now finally accomplished, I guess, the goal in the state of becoming the last in the nation in education. I guess they can say they're first in something. They're first at being the worst in education now, but we're also pretty low on the numbers in women's health in Oklahoma as well, and that goes in line with the labor and delivery as well. And then you go cutting costs. It's putting our women's lives here in Oklahoma in more jeopardy as well, and that's another issue that we need to do more to help prevent these kind of things from happening.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys can be last in public education when you have such a fine state superintendent who is spending all of his time on porn instead of educational issues.
It's pushing issues that shouldn't be pushed in school and driving other objectives into our education system instead of teaching the things that they really need, and then not paying our teachers a professional wage. I mean, they're the ones that provide for all the professions in the world. They teach our young youth that are our future to be able to go into these professions, and we don't give them the respect they deserve, and we're not paying them anywhere near a competitive wage. And like I said, the union side of me keeps coming out in that. And if you want quality, you want teachers, you want quality education, then you need to pay them a fair wage with the other states around you. And really, you need to pay them better because we need them in Oklahoma. And right now, we have shortages of teachers in Oklahoma because they go to other states because it pays better and they don't have to deal with Walters and bull crap that's going on there. And so
let's suppose you agreed with the idea. I personally don't, but I'm not in Oklahoma. I'm not in your district. Maybe a lot of people in your district do agree with the idea of putting Bibles in the schools. Do you have to buy the most expensive Bible on the anywhere and spend millions and millions of dollars that could go to teachers?
No, they shouldn't be. And I don't. We're in the Bible Belt, and religion is a big thing in Oklahoma. But I don't think there's a lot of them that think it should be taught in school. I mean, I'm one that I don't believe. I believe in freedom of religion, and I don't think we should be shoving a religion down somebody's throat in school, in our public schools, when you may have students there that's not what they believe. That's not the religion they believe in. And so why are we forcing that to be taught to them? So again, you look at it from the aspect of our founding fathers and our separation of church and state and freedom of religion and those things. I think there's more people in Oklahoma that kind of believe that we need that separation. We all have churches and we can take our churches for those beliefs and to be taught the way that we want them to be taught. Private schools, that's a different deal. If you got a Catholic private school, then yeah, obviously, but you know what you're getting into when you take your kid to those schools. That's going to be part of the curriculum.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the immigration issue because, like it or not, it is a huge issue out there. My personal thoughts is we don't have a border crisis. We have an immigration system crisis. But what are your takes on immigration?
Exactly that is we got a busted immigration system that needs overhauled. Instead of, and I talked about this last night as well, instead of throwing money at a wall, which does no damn good. Why would we waste money on that when we can? One, we need to sit down and fix our immigration system, make a quicker path to citizenship, and remove the money side of it because that's what's driving it to where we don't fix it because the government's making money off these immigrants coming here. We know we got illegals in our country because it's easier to come to this country illegally than it is legally. And that's just because of the busted system. So let's make the system where it works, a quicker path to citizenship, put more people in place with the judges and people to handle inflow, run background checks and those kind of things. And then it's going to be tough to do this because we've lost a lot of faith and trust because of this administration. But, let the illegals in our country know, okay, we're not kicking you out. We're not deporting you. Unless you're a violent criminal that's been arrested and convicted of something, we deport those. But otherwise, come forth, let's get in the program, let's make you a citizen so you can benefit from the taxes and Social Security you're paying and actually start drawing those things later down the road. And then go from there. I also would like to see something that we do if we do get to the point that we have too many immigrants coming in and we can't handle the inflow, then we reach out to our United Nations partners out there and find out who out there has room for immigrants that are trying to get out of the mess that they're in their country and want a place to go. And maybe we can use our allies to find them homes where they can be part of their country and and grow. Those are the things that I think we can do. It's just we got to sit down again and be adults and figure out a solution to the problem. It's busted and it's been that way. No real changes have been done to it since '86. That's a long time, and a lot of things have changed since then. So,
and that was a Republican president who gave amnesty, and the Republicans still hold him up as a great president. So it's all a matter of I think, asking ourselves what our real values are. If we are a nation of immigrants, whether you like it or not, that's what we've always been. And I'm not going to go work in a field, right? I am not physically capable of it. And if we want our food system to survive, and I don't want to get myself in trouble by painting the picture of just field workers, that's all our immigrants do, because we have immigrants in all walks of life, in medical field and everything else. But one more time, if somebody wants to contribute to your campaign, or if somebody in your district wants to volunteer for your campaign, where do they go?
Go to my website. That'd be Brandon4Congress.com. The donation button's up there. It's going to take you to an Act Blue site. You can donate through there. Reach out to me. There'll be avenues or information on there. You can reach out by phone or email if you're wanting to be part of the campaign or help on that. There's also a spot in there to fill out information for that. You're greatly welcomed and appreciated. Anything we can do to help drive our issues for the normal everyday working class people in our state and our country, we need to do that. And if you're one of the more fortunate that can give more, look in other states as well. I mean, we got close races that are going over in other places. Help push those candidates forward if they're like us and they think the way we do and want to take on the establishment and the corporations. We really need candidates out there to do that, because we can't do it alone. We got to get control of the House and Senate and back in the White House so we can actually start doing things we should do, like taking care of our women's rights. We didn't talk about that, and I just want to throw that out there real fast. It's something that's kind of got put on the back burner, and it's got a lot of women out there that are upset with our party because we've had control of the House and Senate before and never codified Roe. And so in a sense, we allowed the Supreme Court to do what they just went and did a while back. And that's shame on us for letting our women down in that aspect and not protecting their rights. So we need to do that, but to do that, we got to get majority again. And I'm not just telling you, put me in office and get us the majority. If you put me in office and we do get the majority, I'm going to stand there and fight for that day in and day out until we actually get a vote on that to actually make it law of the land.
And you're on all the social media platforms, or which ones are you on?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter or X, TikTok, all those. And,
so if I was an Oklahoma constituent and I wanted to ask you a question, but you're not going to be in or around my area, tell me what's the best way for me to get a question to you where I'm going to get your answer?
Email or text is a way that I can for sure see it and see it. I check them quite often because I got them.
Well, we don't want to give your phone number out.
No, so I say so. Probably email would be the best. That'd be Wade for OKCD2 at yahoo.com. Put something on there, or it's on the website as well. If you go to the website, you can link it there that way. But send me something by email and I'll answer that. And then if it's something that we need to have one-on-one and actually have a conversation, I'll definitely take a phone call as well and try to answer some questions, get more in detail, because I'm one that, sometimes answers through text or in text can be took the wrong way. Sometimes how you're trying to say something, you might have wrote it one way and it sounded different to the person that's reading it. So if there's clarification that needs to be had, then let me know and I'll reach out to you and have a conversation. Because I believe that we owe that to our constituents. We owe them the right to be heard and know that what they're saying is being took and noted so that it's going to hopefully be addressed.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end it than what you just said. So there you have it, folks. We've got Brandon Wade for Congress in Oklahoma's 2nd Congressional District. If you want to see a change in Congress, then be a part of that change and go out there and support people like Brandon Wade. And I hope that you will. Thanks for being with us, Wade. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Maybe later in a few months, we'll check in again and see how you're doing. And keep up the good work. Fight hard. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate y'all. And I ask for your support, and I thank you for it when you give it to us. Thank you.
All right, there you have it, folks. Thanks for giving me a part of your time, and I hope I made it worth your while. Good day. Well, folks, looks like we're back at the barn, and it's time to call it a day. I sure do appreciate you spending your time with me. If you want to help keep this podcast going by supporting me, you can get a paid subscription on Substack, where I'm Resistor Vic. Or if you're the type that'd rather go to PayPal, I'm also resistorvic@gmail.com. Thanks again.